Russia is going through one of the worst periods in its history. Having suffered a major defeat in Ukraine, Russia's reputation is completely ruined. The Russian army has lost 620 soldiers and 24 tanks in the last 24 hours alone. It has been one of the most difficult days for the Russian army since the beginning of the war. The Russian army no longer has the strength to attack in any area. Hundreds of Russian soldiers continue to die every day. Putin is looking for allies, but even his closest friends no longer want to cooperate with him. So how did Putin end up in this situation? How did the Ukrainian army shake Russia's reputation? Let's answer these questions together. The Russian Federation was founded in 1991, after the dissolution of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. It is therefore seen as the leader of the Eastern Bloc states. Russia was the biggest rival of the United States and one of the most powerful countries in the world. But this is no longer the case. Russia is the largest country in the world in terms of land size. The Russian army is also the second largest in the world. For these reasons, Russia thought it could scare the whole world. Putin made very bold statements before the war, openly threatening the whole world. Before the invasion of Ukraine, Putin was in front of the cameras saying that this war would be over in a very short time. Putin's propagandists were saying that Kiev would be taken over in a few days. Russian journalists were reporting that Zelensky would be arrested and brought to Moscow. But none of these plans came true. Ukrainian leader Zelensky has decided to resist Russia's invasion attempt. This decision surprised the whole world, because the Russian army was much larger. But Zelensky was very determined to resist Russia. Zelensky's statements during this process greatly increased the motivation of the Ukrainian army and citizens. The Ukrainian army showed great heroism and started to resist the invasion of the Russian army. Meanwhile, Zelensky held very important diplomatic meetings. All the leaders Zelensky met decided to send aid to Ukraine. Zelensky, who has an impressive character, managed to convince all world leaders, and a large number of weapons were sent to Ukraine. The Ukrainian army, equipped with state-of-the-art weapon systems, defeated Russia. The Russian army was first stopped around the Dnipro River. Then it was driven to the east of the river by counter-operations. Ukrainian soldiers inflicted enormous damage on the Russian army in these operations. The losses suffered by the Russian army since the beginning of the war have shocked everyone. According to the latest data published by the Ukrainian army, the total losses suffered by Russia are as follows: 94,760 soldiers, 2,966 tanks, 5,928 armored vehicles, 1,929 artillery systems, 281 airplanes, 264 helicopters, 16 military ships, 1,617 unmanned aerial vehicles. After these huge losses, it was thought that Russia could not win this war, because the biggest power of the Russian army was its tanks. But the drones used by the Ukrainian army managed to destroy the Russian tanks. Russia's tank fleet was almost completely destroyed. Russia has no time to produce new tanks. Putin's army cannot conduct a ground operation without these tanks. Putin decided to buy tanks from other countries to solve this problem, but no country wants to sell tanks to Russia, because everyone thinks Putin will lose this war. China, one of Russia's closest allies, is very hesitant to send weapons for this war. One of Putin's key allies is Lukashenko, the repressive leader of Belarus. Belarus is one of the countries bordering Russia and Ukraine. The Belarusian border is also very close to Kiev. The Kremlin wants Belarus to join this war, but the Belarusian people do not want to be part of this war. Belarusian leader Lukashenko is not participating in this war because he fears a rebellion in the country. Despite all Putin's pressure, the Belarusian army refused to be part of this war. In Iran, Russia's other ally, there is also chaos. The Iranian people have started a major revolt in the country due to the oppressive policies of the state. Iranians say that they want to live in a democratic society, but Russia continues to support repressive leaders in order to continue its cooperation with Iran. The Iranian government is very cautious about cooperating with Russia. Iran does not even admit to sending drones to Russia. The most important reason for this is Iran's fear of Western sanctions. Western powers imposed sanctions to prevent Russia's aggressive policies. Russia's economy was severely damaged by these sanctions. They have also announced severe sanctions against countries that support this war. This makes it difficult for Putin to find allies. Zelensky has established a very good relationship with Western states. Thanks to this relationship, Western countries decided to increase their sanctions against Russia. Meanwhile, Ukraine's reputation grew all over the world. Scholars researching the war wrote dozens of articles about the strategic operations of the Ukrainian army. The success of the Ukrainian army was the talk of the world, while Russia's failure was visible for all to see. Public support for Putin in Russia continues to decline day by day. Polls conducted in Russia show that Putin's political career is coming to an end. Putin, who has ruled Russia since 1999, is about to retire. One of the biggest reasons for the increasing reactions against Putin in Russia is the explosions in the country. In recent days, there have been explosions in a shopping mall and 2 military bases in Russia. The Russian people experienced a great panic due to the fires that broke out. The Russian people are making heavy accusations against the Kremlin administration for the lack of security. Citizens in Russia want this war to end as soon as possible. As the war continues, the death toll is rising. Russian leader Putin had declared mobilization and decided to recruit 300,000 Russian citizens into the army. However, this number was not enough. The Russian people are also afraid of a new mobilization decision. They think that Russia should withdraw before more people join this war. The Kremlin leadership, on the other hand, cannot accept the withdrawal, because Putin knows that if he withdraws, his defeat will be seen by the whole world. That's why he is trying to prolong the war. The Ukrainian army is determined to win this war. The Ukrainian army, which continues its operations to liberate the regions occupied by Russia, has finally turned to Crimea. After the explosions in Crimea, the Russian army took a defense position. Russian soldiers started digging trenches in Crimea. Crimea may soon become the new center of the war. Crimea, occupied by Russia in 2014, is considered one of the most important regions in this war. Ukrainian leader Zelensky said that Crimea must be liberated to end this war. One of Zelensky's sentences in a speech became the new slogan of the Ukrainian people. Zelensky said, "It started in Crimea, it will end in Crimea." Russian leader Putin is very afraid of a defeat in Crimea, because Putin's greatest achievement was to occupy Crimea. After occupying Crimea, Putin did a lot of propaganda to the Russian people and portrayed himself as a hero. If the Russian occupation of Crimea ends, Putin's reputation could be deeply shaken. The Ukrainian army plans to end this war by liberating Crimea. Panic in the Kremlin as the fighting intensifies. There is great uncertainty in Russia. It is claimed that many leaders in the Kremlin want to withdraw from Ukraine. This is also causing discord within the Russian government. Putin's reputation has been shaken ever in the Kremlin. Do you think Putin might be forced to resign as a result of these successes of the Ukrainian army? What do you think about the future of Russia? Do you think the Ukrainian army will be able to liberate Crimea? Share your opinions with us.